Welcome back. In this video, we're going to learn about units and be able to convert between different units that have different metric prefixes. And we will also use dimensional analysis to solve various problems. So SI units is actually French. It's for Système International, or the international system. It has base units that have common prefixes. So each time we want to measure a given quantity, there's a specific unit associated with it. If you measure the length of an object, the base unit is a meter. If you measure the mass of an object, the base unit is a kilogram. Measure time, base unit of second. If you want to measure the amount, the number of something, then the base unit, the SI base unit is mole. And for temperature, our SI base unit is Kelvin. Now, we can take any of these base units and we can combine them together to get derived units. Volume is an example of a derived unit, where we take the base unit of meters and we stretch it into 3 dimensions. So if you measure the length, the width, and the height, then you can measure the volume of a substance. We can also use prefixes to describe, to modify these base units or the derived units. So, for example, mega, which is abbreviated with a capital M, has a multiplicative factor of 10 to the 6. So in other words, a megameter is 1,000,000 meters. A kilometer, is 1,000 meters. Whereas a picometer, down here on the bottom, is 1 trillionth of a meter. So mega tells us that we have 1,000,000, kilo, 1,000, deci is 1/10, centa is 1/100th, milli is 1,000th, micro is 1/1,000,000th, nano is 1/1000,000th, and pico is 1 trillionth. And so you want to be familiar with and able to use these different abbreviations. We also have in chemistry and physics a special unit called an angstrom, and that's used to measure lengths on the atomic scale. So this is 1/10 billionth of a meter. So you can see that it falls in between a nanometer and a picometer. And you'll see this a lot in chemistry. You'll see lengths measured in units of angstroms. Let me give you an example here. If we wanted to find out how many micrometers are in 8.2 kilometers, we can use these prefixes in order to determine that. What you first want to do is write out your various prefixes. We know 1 micrometer is 10 to the minus 6 meters, or 1,000,000th of a meter. We can express this as a ratio. Anytime we have any conversion, any factor, where we would convert from one unit to the next, we can express that as a ratio, one number over another number. For kilometer, we have 1 kilometer is equal to 10 to the 3 meters, or 1,000 meters. And again, we can express this as a ratio. So our initial number is 8.2 kilometers. We need to first convert this from kilometers into meters, and then we can convert from meters into micrometers. So we set up our initial ratio using kilometers and meters. And when we set up the ratio this way, what we're going to do is multiply the units that are on top and divide by the units that are on the bottom. That will, when we divide by one unit by itself, those units cancel out. So we're left with units of meters. And now we have 8.2 times 10 to the 3 meters. Keep in mind here, we want to keep the same number of significant figures. We had 2 significant figures in 8.2, and we're going to keep them throughout. So now when we convert from meters to micrometers, we use the conversion factor that we identified earlier. Again, we want to align it such that we have meters on top and meters on bottom. So that way, when we divide those two, the units of meters will cancel out, and we're left with micrometers. So we have 8.2 times 10 to the 9 micrometers. You can think of conversion factors as precise values. In other words, they have an infinite number of significant figures. All right, here is a practice problem for you to try. I'd like for you to pause the video, read over the question, and try this one on before we finish up. Welcome back. So in this question, you're asked to identify how many angstroms are in 3.15 miles. You're given the conversion factor for miles to meters. And so you need to use the earlier information converting angstroms to meters as well. We know that 1 angstrom is 1/10 billionth of a meter, or 10 to the minus 10 meters. And that can be expressed as a ratio. We also know that 1 mile is 1,609.34 meters, and expressed as a ratio here. So we have 3.15 miles. We need to use these conversion factors in order to convert from miles to meters, then from meters to angstroms. So we have 1,609.34 meters per 1 mile. When we multiply by this factor, the miles will cancel out and we're left with meters, which is 5,070 meters. Notice here that I've rounded our answer to 3 significant figures because we had 3 significant figures here on 3.15 miles. However, as you're doing this in your calculator, don't round it yet, only round at the very end. Now we have the conversion between meters and angstroms. And so our final answer, when our meters cancel out, is 5.07 times 10 to the 13 angstroms. That gives us a final answer of B. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.